All right, so today, what did we get done on the rear end, on the next steps of the rear end? Well, we got the differential case in there, bearings. So really got the preload done on the pinion the other day. And then, so it was time to put this in. So what I did is I kind of test fit it first. I put the differential in, tightened the adjusters here, took the end play out, and then the backlash that I checked. I bought this at Harbor Freight. The stand, and then the dial indicator. It came out to like a 1/2 inch of backlash, which it obviously is way too much. I think it's only supposed to have like 3/1000 maximum. So, but I hadn't adjust. That was just by hand tightening the adjusters. So, but in order to tighten them, because there's like a sequence you have to go through. So, and this obviously doesn't have the caps on, but these are the caps. So the caps go on there, and then you have to torque the bolts differently so that it can allow when you tighten the adjuster, it allows the bearing cap or the race to move in. So you tighten it until you pick up all of the end play, right? So there's no end play. And then you have to, I think, tighten the right one, which is, so this is the top of the rear end housing. You tighten the right one. And so I made this adjuster tool, and this is just, I went to Napa and I got a 1.5 inch spindle nut. And then I welded a, what is this, 5/8 socket to it. So I'll stick this in the end of the axle tube. And then if you know what the end of the, there's a hex in the adjuster. And so I'll turn that. And I think you pick up the slack with the left one, and then you use the right one to get that fine adjustment of the backlash. But you can see, like, obviously that's way too much backlash, because you can see there's all that gap there. So that gap needs to be closed. So my next step will be to fine tune the backlash. So hopefully my next update will be after I fine tune that out and get that 3/1000 of backlash. And then you do the paint. So the paint, that paint there, you paint the paint, and then you get how the teeth are riding together. And so, again, never done any of this before. I know about it, but I've never done any of it. So, yeah, it's all a learning process. And then after that, we'll put the spider gears in the housing. And then I got to get these axle shafts cleaned up. I think I might get them side-by-side, a little rusty. Put the bearings in, put the axles in, bearings and seals, then axles. Yeah. And then should be ready to install. But we'll see. So yeah, that's it. That was what I did today. Making small. It was hard to find a nut. I went to a hardware that has a pretty good hardware selection. They didn't have it. It's Saturday, so this normal place I go to get like hardware I can't find. They were closed, but Napa was open, and I just went in there and said, I need a nut, a 1.5 inch hex nut. So they found the spindle nut. They were pretty helpful. Yeah. So once I got that, and now I can further on. So yeah, that's it. Stay tuned for the next update. All right. So what did we do on the rear end? What was the next steps that we took? Well, we got the caps installed, finger tight on the bottom bolt, 10 foot-pounds on the top bolt. That allows the cap to be installed, but the bearing cone race to slide in this under the cap. Adjusters are, I used my tool here. they say in the manual, you want to get 10 hundredths first. So you want, that's like your starting point. So get the backlash down to where, or get all the end play here. So you get it pretty much, so there's no bearing movement side to side. And then you want 10 hundredths of backlash for a starting point. Then you loosen the right adjuster, tighten the left adjuster until the backlash then becomes 3 thousandths to 4 thousandths. If that makes sense, any of that. And then what that does is that draws it this way into the pinion gear. And then you torque the adjusters, and essentially once the adjusters start holding torque, they're pretty much in all the way. That's as far as you want to, because what you don't want to do is in reading in the manual and what they describe it, you don't want to crush the adjusters in to crush the bearing races onto the rollers, because then you will either prematurely wear your bearings if they're too tight, or if they're too loose, you'll have a bunch of noise. So yeah. They also say that you're supposed to be spinning it. Every time you move the adjuster, you have to do some rotations, because you have to allow the bearing races to kind of seat. And then I also installed, it's kind of hard to see here. Actually, I won't go around, but put the spider gears in. And that was a tricky deal. But I figured out a little trick. So yeah, I've just been playing, messing. I want to make sure I understand it by what the manual says. I've watched some videos on it, but it's like they're not necessarily technical. It's like a guy going to do this, do that, do get it, and you're good. But I want to understand it in the manual sense, because the manual is, you're always going to have the manual. Maybe you don't have, YouTube someday. So, or you don't have access to it. So it's nice to use the print manual if you want to see it. It's this section here: differential bearing, preload, and drive gear backlash. That's this section here. And then it goes on to the next page of, the tooth contact. So once you're done with getting the bearing backlash, you then paint the teeth and see how the teeth are contacting each other. So that will be later. I've got to do the loosening of that, tightening of that, put them all together, but it's coming together. So anyway, that's it for today. All right. So spend another day on the rear end. Give a little update as to what point I'm at now. But so I got, let's go in the steps. So I needed to loosen this right one and tighten this left one, which essentially moves the ring gear this way into the pinion. And then you keep checking the backlash to get that 3 thousandths to 4 thousandths, which I did. Then you torque this one to 10 foot-pounds, torque this one to 10 foot-pounds, and then you keep every time checking the backlash. Then you torque these to 100 foot-pounds, which essentially tightens the bearing race in place, or the cup. And then eventually what you have to do is you have to get 70 pounds to each adjuster and then put the locks in. All while you're doing that, you have to have the 3 to 4 thousandths there on the backlash. So still have that 3 to 4 thousandths. And then when you're done with all of that, you paint the teeth and check your contact patch, because there's another good video out there, Weber Auto or Weber College or University or whatever, does a bunch of automotive repair type stuff. So what I did here was I used the paint and I did all the teeth. I did 2 at first, and I did them at the 12 o'clock just to do my initial check. But I wanted to see, he made it in the Weber Automotive video, he made a big deal about talking about making sure that all the teeth are contacting like they should be. So I then went back and painted all the teeth and then ran it forward and backwards, because obviously you're gonna have to go forward and reverse. But from what I can tell now is I'm getting pretty good contact. Seems to be in the middle, seems to go pretty much all the way across. I'm also getting pretty good contact on my pinion down there, which is nice. So I'm pretty happy with it. For not knowing how to do this, I'm pretty satisfied with the result. And what was I gonna say? I'm losing my train of thought. But oh yeah, this is what I was gonna say. I think the reason why I'm getting such a good result is because I did not change any of the shims. I kept everything pretty much the same, and I'm not changing ring and pinion gear. So this is the stock from the factory ring and pinion, and I just went back to the same set that the factory had. And as far as I know, because this truck has been in my family since it's been new, is that this stuff has never been changed. So I went back with the same shims. It only had one shim, which was on the pinion, under the pinion bearing, the big one, which is a 32. And nothing else has really changed. So I think that's why I'm getting a really good result. And because I don't think that this rear, like the differential case is in good condition, everything, nothing's messed up. So I think that's why I've been able to get it to where I need. So it's been a good learning rear end, because I've been able to just kind of remove and replace the bearings, seals, and then put everything back to factory. And I think getting pretty good results because of that, which is nice. I feel like this doesn't really happen to me that often. Usually it's a little bit more challenging. But I'm just following the steps in the manual. And yeah, so that's the update on the rear end. Now my next step is going to be sandblasting the axles here. And then putting the bearings and seals in, throwing the axles in, put the C-clips in, and then that'll finish up the rear end, bolt the cover on, and then install it in the rear there. So hopefully the next update will be axles again. So we'll see. But yeah, until next time.